Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Chapter Bhagavad-Gita, Chapter 3, Text 29. Prakrite Guna Samu. Okay, let me start all over here. My glasses. Okay. Prakrite Guna Samudha Sajjante Guna Karma So Sajate Guna Karmasu Tan Akritsna Vido Madhan Kritsna Vinna Vichalayat.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Persons who are unknowledgeable falsely identify with gross material consciousness and are full of material designations. This body is a gift of the material nature, and one who is too much attached to the bodily consciousness is called mandan, or a lazy person without understanding of spirit soul. Ignorant men think of the body as the self. Bodily connections with others are accepted as kinsmanship. The land in which the body is obtained is the object of worship, and the formalities of religious rituals are considered ends in themselves. Social work, nationalism, and altruism are some of the activities for such materially designated persons. Under the spell of such designations, they are always busy in the material field. For them, spiritual realization is a myth, and so they are not interested. Such bewildered persons may even become engaged in such primary moral principles of life as nonviolence and similar materially benevolent work. Those who are, however, enlightened in spiritual life should not try to agitate such materially engrossed persons. Better to prosecute one's own spiritual activities silently. Men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness, and therefore Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord, because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risks, even to the point of approaching ignorant men to try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being.
I'm going to add something there.
Okay?
I'm reading a book by Satyanarayan Prabhu, who is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and then he took shelter of Haridas Shastri. And Satyanarayan Prabhu is Mahant in Vrindavan, which means he's highly respected by all of the renunciates in Vrindavan for his knowledge and dedication as a Vaishnav. So anyway, this book I was just reading. It's the Krishna Sandarbha, which is, or Bhakti Sandarbha, which is part of the Tat Sandarbha, a set of books by Jiva Goswami about the teachings, all the teachings of Vaishnava philosophy. Anyway, this one section struck me today, and he says, Satyanarayan says that the guru, because he has been involved with material nature, can be empathetic, whereas Krishna, who is above material nature, is not empathetic. He's loving, but not empathetic. And that the guru and other Vaishnavas are empathetic because they have experienced the material world. And so I thought really poignant and applies to what he's saying here.
So, yes, but it also, I was thinking something along similar lines the other day, but I wouldn't even bring it up because it's like, okay, We're always minute. Our spirit soul is always minute. Krishna can never be divided. It says that he can never be minute. So if he can't ever be minute, how can he totally understand a spirit soul that is minute? And I think you just sort of said the same thing.
Well, he can understand. I mean, how can he not, right? He's omniscient and all of those omni things that God is. But that idea of being empathetic with someone, having empathy for a person's situation is not there. It's not one of his qualities as God.
Do
Um,
you not think that Krishna is empathetic?
I think he is as Krishna, the the lover and the child in those different rasas. I think he is,
But not
but
as
I think
Narayan.
right, not as Bhagavan.
Hmm.
Hmm. That's
Well, he is,
that's kind
even
of
though he's personal, they always say he has some impersonal aspects.
Yes, Kandita,
hmm.
object.
Yeah, I I just don't know about that. I mean, I think that I've read that Prabhupada said Krishna does not want his devotees to suffer. He doesn't want them to suffer, and there has to be some empathy there. I
Yeah,
don't think that Krishna is without any empathy.
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, I guess I don't understand what you're saying.
Um, so in a personal relationship, Krishna is always taking care of his devotee, always taking care of him. Whenever you read something, and Bhakti has noted this in different things that we've read, how can you say that Krishna doesn't care? Because it sounds like he doesn't care. But when you have a relationship with Krishna, he does care and he does help relieve the suffering. But in general, Krishna as God, as Bhagavan, because he is not in touch with the material nature, and the Guru is more empathetic than Krishna.
Well, I think
Or,
that's what Prabhupada is saying here too.
yes,
Just just the same thing. The guru is more sympathetic than Krishna.
right. Because the Guru has lived through that, whereas Krishna hasn't. Not that he doesn't understand it or doesn't know it, but the empathy is there more pronounced in the Guru,
I see.
which made me more appreciative of Srila
Hmm.
Prabhupada. I read that. I was like, wow,
You hear
that's
Christians talk about something similar, what's more important, the law or what or to love each other. God's laws are to love each other. There was a fight all the time between Jesus and the Pharisees. So,
right. And we have a comparable thing between the Vaidhi Bhaktis and the Raganuga Bhaktis. We have a similar kind of thing. The rules or the flavor of the rules. So we have a similar kind of thing.
well, that's very interesting. It's probably above my pay scale.
Bef Before we go on to the next verse, I just want to say, I feel a little discombobulated when I started chanting the verse. It's like before we start chanting any verses or studying the Vedas, we always offer obeisances or some, homage to our spiritual master who gave us this, and also to what we're reading. Like, before Bhagavatam, we say three times Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And before I start, I would just like to offer my obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, who is all of our spiritual master. He's our grandfather spiritual master, or our direct spiritual master. So before I go on, I just want to do that
I
over
think that's
here.
a very good idea. I think we should. And the reason I never have is because to me it's like takes a certain amount of audacity rather than humility to say them. But I think you're right. Something like either Om Namo Vasudevaya or the prayers to Srila Prabhupada.
Okay. So, for my obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who came here and saved us from voidism and impersonalism and gave us Krishna Bhakti as it is. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvana Picharane Nirasesha Sunyavadi Pasacha Desatarine. Hare
I would
Krishna.
say something. I usually say those prayers off mic before I come on because
Okay.
because often to me it seems like showboating.
That's what I
Oh no,
said.
I'm
That's
not.
what I said too, but I don't think it is here. And I
I don't
think
feel that way at all. I'm sorry if it seems like I'm showboating, but
And
I
not
just want to do that. I feel odd, like
I think you
uh,
should. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't think Gussie says she doesn't think you should. I think she just said she's comfortable doing it offline.
okay,
I do it off
okay.
mic.
Well, I just
Go ahead.
okay. I just felt like I wanted to start off with something besides just jump out of the blue, jumping into a verse. Okay, all right. I guess each according to their own. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadat yatma chetasa nirashir nirmano bhutva yudhyasva vidate jvaraha.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with mind intent on me, and without desire for gain and free from egoism and lethargy, fight. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad-Gita. The Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge duties as if in military discipline. Such an injunction may make things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out, with dependence on Krishna, because that is the constitutional position of the living entity. The living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. Arjuna was, therefore, ordered by Sri Krishna to fight, as if the Lord were his military commander. One has to sacrifice everything for the good will of the Supreme Lord, and at the same time discharge prescribed duties without claiming proprietorship. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute his order. The Supreme Lord is the soul of all souls. Therefore, one who depends solely and wholly on the Supreme Soul without personal consideration, or in other words, one who is fully Krishna conscious, is called Adhyatma Chetasa. Nirasi means that one has to act on the order of the Master, nor should one expect fruitive results. The cashier may count millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person, but that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. That is the real purport of Mai, or unto me. And when one acts in such Krishna consciousness, certainly he does not claim proprietorship over anything. This consciousness is called nirmama, or nothing is mine. And if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmen in the bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. In this way one may become vikara jivara, or without feverish mentality or lethargy. Everyone, according to his quality and position, has a particular type of work to discharge, and all such duties may be discharged in Krishna consciousness, as described above. That will lead one to the path of liberation. I think this is where and he said something like this similarly. The path of liberation is work according to the Vedas. Because on the one hand, he's saying here, you should only be doing everything for Krishna, and then he says, but you should do your duty, whatever it is you do. And I think for especially like Americans, this is a very hard question. Okay, we're
Oh,
on
text 31.
text 31.
Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shradhavanto nasuyanto muchate te pi karma bihi.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. One who executes his duties according to my injunctions and who follows this teaching faithfully without envy becomes free from the bondage of fruitive actions. I found envy to be the greatest impediment for myself. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the essence of all Vedic wisdom, and therefore is eternally true without exception. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write comments on the Bhagavad-Gita but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruitive action. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness.
Text 32. Ye tvetar abhyasuyanto nanu tishtanti me matam sarvagana vimudamscha vidhi nashtan achetasaha.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not practice them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled and doomed to ignorance and bondage. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein. As there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, so there is certainly punishment for the disobedience of the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self, of the Supreme Brahman and Paramatma and the Personality of Godhead due to a vacant heart. Therefore there is no hope of perfection of life for him. Any comments?
Nope, nothing for me.
That word disobedient. On the one hand,
I think from
we can't follow the rules, and he says even if you can't do them, does that make you disobedient? It's hard to know the difference between disobedience. I mean, it's hard to know when you're being disobedient, unless it's
If
something obvious.
say you're going to do something and then don't do it, then you're being disobedient.
Unless you weren't supposed to do it, and you do it anyway. And that's called dieting.
Okay, text 33. Sadurisham chestate svasya prakriter jnanavan api prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows his nature. What can repression accomplish? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Unless one is situated on the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness, he cannot get free from the influence of the modes of material nature, as it is confirmed by the Lord in the 7th chapter, 7:14. Therefore, even for the most highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of Maya simply by theoretical knowledge, or by separating the soul from the body. There are many so-called spiritualists who outwardly pose to be advanced in the science, but inwardly or privately are completely under the particular modes of nature which they are unable to surpass. Academically, one may be very learned, but because of his long association with material nature, he is in bondage. Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of the material entanglement, even though one may be engaged in his prescribed duties. Therefore, without being fully Krishna conscious, no one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become a so-called yogi or transcendentalist artificially. It is better to be situated in one's position and to try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. Thus, one may be freed from the clutches of Maya. I hear some
34. Indriyas yendriyas tarte raga dvesha vyavastitau tayorna vasham agachet tau hyasya paripantinau.
translation by Srila Prabhupada. Attraction and repulsion for sense objects are felt by embodied beings, but one should not fall under the control of senses and sense objects because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Those who are in Krishna consciousness are naturally reluctant to engage in material sense gratifications. But those who are not in such consciousness should follow the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures. Unrestricted sense enjoyment is the cause of material engagement, but one who follows the rules and regulations of the revealed scriptures does not become entangled by the sense objects. For example, sex enjoyment is a necessity for the conditioned soul, and sex enjoyment is allowed under the license of marriage ties. For example, according to scriptural injunctions, one is forbidden to engage in sex relationships with any women other than one's wife. All other women are to be considered as one's mother. But in spite of such injunctions, a man is still inclined to have sex relationships with other women. These propensities are to be curbed, otherwise they will be stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. As long as the material body is there, the necessities of the material body are allowed, but under rules and regulations. And yet, we should not rely upon the control of such allowances. One has to follow those rules and regulations unattached to them, because practice of sense gratifications under regulations may also lead one to go astray as much as there is always the chance of an accident, even on the royal roads. Although they may be carefully maintained, no one can guarantee that there will be no danger even on the safest road. The sense enjoyment spirit has been current a very long, long time owing to material association. Therefore, in spite of regulated sense enjoyment, there is every chance of falling down. Therefore, any attachment for regulated sense enjoyment must also be avoided by all means. But action in the loving service of Krishna detaches one from all kinds of sensory activities. Therefore, no one should try to be detached from Krishna consciousness at any stage of life. The whole purpose of detachment from all kinds of sense enjoyment is ultimately to become situated on the platform of Krishna consciousness.
Okay. One more, I guess.
I
30. Mhm.
Yeah, one more. I don't know how to phrase my question on
Uh,
that. Well, then what is our model of the platform to be fully engaged and on the platform of Krishna consciousness? Does that mean anything other than for like me being a sannyasi? I mean, that's what he's describing.
Right. All those things fall away. As your friend at Sodell says, do the do's and the don'ts will take care of themselves, right?
But does that mean our goal in life is to be sannyasis?
Our goal in
I'm gonna
life,
have to.
the goal is not to be a sannyasi. The goal is to love Krishna. And the rest of that stuff just falls away.
He's saying, though, to love Krishna all the time
Right.
and to never think of anything else.
Right.
But you
That's
can't
what it is.
but you can't live like that.
Well, no, I can't live like that. But the thing is that if you are like that, all those other things just fall away.
Hmm.
Krishna will provide for you. You don't have to, it gets to a point like Srila Prabhupada, what was he thinking? To come on a ship at his age,
That was a bold move.
a bold move, completely dependent on Krishna, right?
Yeah.
And everything worked out fine. People cooked for him, people bought plane tickets for him, everything. He didn't have to do anything. It
But
was
he
all
was
taken.
doing something all the time. I mean, you could
He
tell
was always,
You could tell Prabhupada wasn't a bum. That was
no, of course, I'm not
too
saying that
obvious.
sannyasa, but he was very much engaged in serving Krishna all the time. And so Krishna took care of everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah. So does that mean that we should all become sannyasis?
but that's what he was.
I know, but you don't understand what I'm saying. So the goal is not to become a sannyasi. The goal is to love Krishna. And by loving Krishna, you by default are a sannyasi.
Okay. But I don't think you're a sannyasi though if you're like falling down every day, you know. So whether you love Krishna or not, you're not on the Krishna conscious platform.
A sannyasi is not a job. It's a state of mind. Like we have all these sannyasis in ISKCON, and I pretty much ignore every single one of them because they aren't sannyasis. They have bank accounts of millions of dollars. They have fancy schmancy cars. They have girlfriends. They have, fancy photography equipment. That's not a sannyasi. That's just not.
That's not how I
It's
would
not.
picture a sannyasi.
It's not.
I picture a
So
sannyasi as relying entirely on his everything from ISKCON, from the movement.
right. So, but a sannyasi, the other side of the coin, is a sannyasi is someone who is fully engaged in serving Krishna. That's a sannyasi, whether it's a man or a woman. That's why the issue of can women take sannyas? It's like,
Well,
of
of course they
course,
can. Yes.
can, because it's a state of mind. It's not a job description, but it's become a job description, and it isn't a job description. It's our goal. Our goal is to love Krishna, and in loving Krishna, we are renounced. we're not going to movies, we're not going to the mall, we're not, buying earrings or, new outfits, or I like this silk better than that silk. That's not it. That's not what it is. I mean, you look at the Goswamis, they lived in rags. And they were always engaged in writing and singing about Krishna.
But if you look at the friends of Krishna in Vrindavan or in Mathura, they didn't live renounced lives, and how many of those were devotees of Krishna? So
Who are
it
these people?
Krishna's friends, I don't know,
Oh, in Krishna.
Even Arjuna, yes,
We're not talking about Krishna Lila. We're talking about right
sannyas,
now.
yes, yes, yes,
Right now. Here,
yes.
right now. You know.
Okay,
Were the people in Krishna Lila sannyas? Yes, because they were always thinking about Krishna. The gopis were thinking, "Oh, Krishna will really like this sari. He'll think I look really. I'll be more attractive to him, and I can see him more often." And so they're always thinking about Krishna. I don't think like that when I
and
look at
Kamsa is always thinking about Krishna because he
Kamsa,
wants to kill
how
him.
he's going to kill him, right?
Yes.
So always thinking about Krishna is a state of renunciation, which is called sannyas. It's not a job, even though it's one of the ashrams. It's not a job. It's a state of mind.
Hare Krishna. Nice to see you. And
Okay, so